What's happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and VRising 1.0 is finally upon us. Now, while I am excited to jump in and play with friends, I've actually had a chance to jump in early, and I've been messing around via console commands just to take a look at some of the late game stuff and get an idea of how it works. So what I wanted to do was put together a video that helps get people up to date that are coming back to the game, basically giving you an idea of what to look forward to, the big changes that have been taking place and whatnot. If you are a brand new player to VRising, there's a lot of starter guides out there. This is definitely not the video intended for you. If you have played the game before, this will probably be more your speed because we're going to be going through a bunch of different things, including V-Blood changes to the spell book, equipment changes, some stuff that kind of even falls into spoiler territory, but a lot of this has already been discussed in the various dev diaries and updates that they've been providing and whatnot. So either way, let's jump in. And the very first thing I want to do is actually go through the V-Blood tree changes. Now, there are a couple new bosses, but most importantly, there's been a couple of changes in how we get various things while leveling up. Spells are now done through what's known as spell points. They are in tier 1, 2, and 3. We'll be taking a look at spells after we go through the tree. But first, just to kind of run through everybody, talk about some main things to look forward to. Crossbow at 20. Over at Lydia, we get the longbow as well as our first bag. Some really nice bags we can get access to now as well. Fishing is now unlocked through Finn at level 32. And a lot of this is stuff that you've probably seen this stuff before, but there are quite a few things that are new as well. We're seeing different things now being added onto bosses that weren't previously, stuff like the candles. I don't remember Christina having candles before. Get our greatsword at 44 from Tristan, and then our Reaper at 47 from Krieg. Of course, human form and slashers, now at level 50 from Bane. Gems as well as stone on the Geomancer. Altar of Stygian Awakening is one of the new things we can create. I'll be talking about that after we get through the V-Blood, along with the Stygian Summoning Circle. These are some of the new enemies you can find. There's also a lot of advanced crafting type stations, so advanced blood presses, advanced grinders, just allowing you to get those mats as soon as possible. Of course, pistols with Jade at 57. Some big changes to the Ancestral Forge and some cool storage, like equipment storage. You can load up way more weapons and whatnot in there, but it's unique to only equipment. Of course, the spider form attached to Angora. That one, probably should have seen that one coming. Banshee's all the way at 63 now. Craft our own coins, copper, silver, and gold sun. Barrel disguise. It's going to be a fun one to mess around with, ambush some people with. Belmont doesn't have a level listed, but when I found him, at least he was around level 80. He will unlock the whip. Of course, the blood key from Wood Styx, they've reworked him. It's our final bag there from Gore Crusher. And then Valencia gives us access to primal jewels, which are pretty wild. So now that we're up to the 3 big bosses, let's talk briefly about soul shards and how they work. So soul shards, instead of giving passive bonuses, are now a necklace that you equipped. So in this case, 31.9 spell power, 10% chance on primary hit to spawn a Death Knight, can only trigger once every 10 seconds, and it's going to replace your ultimate ability. The interesting thing about these is that they will lose durability over time, and unless you're feeding on primal blood souls, which comes from the level 80 rifts, they will decay and eventually break. You can also craft the pedestal just to hold it if you don't want to have it equipped. That is, either you have it equipped or you put it in a pedestal to store it. Like this one, chance to trigger chain lightning on hit. That'll be fun. And of course, at the top of the ladder, we have Dracula himself with his own soul shard. So to talk about some of the stuff we just saw, to start, let's talk about spells. So the way spells are going to work now is when you beat something, you're going to get a tier 1, a tier 2, or a tier 3 spell point. You'll then be able to pick what skill you want. So if I wanted to just unlock wolves first, I could go ahead and do that and then pick that up. For example, when I got over to here, I had a choice between Aftershock, Power Surge, or Chaos Volley. I'm a big Chaos Volley enjoyer, so that's the first thing I picked up. And this is just how it works, which I'm a really, really big fan of this change, being able to like pick one versus like, oh, well, you know, if you want Frost Barrier, you got to go to this one guy. Now you just got to get someone with tier 2 ice spells and pick what you want. On top of that, the way gems work now is you'll have a bunch of different ones here. The tier 4 are pretty wild. On top of having the randomized roll, so damage, projectile, and cooldown, it also has a 4th effect, which is pretty interesting. In this case, hitting a target affected by ignite. Nope. It engulfs the target in agonizing flames, dealing damage and healing self for your spell power 5 times. And from what I can tell, all tier 4 jewels for Chaos Volley, for example, would have that perk on them, while the first 3 perks would be random. So some pretty interesting stuff going on with jewels now as well. Besides that, some of the other stuff that I was talking about that we unlocked, the Stygian Circle, we can use some of the mats from the rifts in these. In particular, I'm really excited about Blood Treants. The idea of just getting different seeds sounds so freaking awesome to ramp up your seed production. Elementals, stuff that's going to yield study books, as well as paper and scrolls, and Anthium books as well. Over here, we have the Eye of Mortorum. When you unlock this, this is going to be what adds the Rift Incursion timer onto your map. Those will be over at the Ruins of Mortorium. And while we're looking at the map, the 2 main areas are Ruins of Mortorium, which is new, and then Dracula's Demise. Dracula's Demise basically has sticks over here. As far as I know, it's the only place you can get blood crystals as well. But besides that, we have that unlocked, as well as this unlocked. This area is around level 80. This area starts at 57, and then over towards this area, the backside of Inner Dracula's Castle, you have a lot more stuff that is around level 80. This is one of the other new things, the Altar of Stygian Awakening. These are passive abilities for our elemental trees, and these are just unlocked and always active. So cooldown recovery by 15%, resistances by 10. And these are unlocked with these shards that we can farm doing those rifts. So if I remember correctly, I want to say it was like 400, 600, and 1,000, 400 regular, 600 greater, and then 1,000 greater to unlock these various passives. But definitely some nice stuff being able to just get passive bonuses. Over here we have a pedestal, just showing that. You can see this has been sitting in the pedestal. It's already, you can tell, perfect timing. We got to see the durability tick down in real time. So yeah, very interesting with the soul shards now, because unless you're getting those primal blood souls, you're gonna lose them, which is very interesting. You know, people can't just take them and hoard them and hide them in the castle. They're gonna decay, which means people are gonna be having to take these out and basically feed them energy to keep them alive. Really like that change. It'll stop people from just, you know, hoarding them. So talking about the Ancestral Forge and a couple different things here. Ancestral Forge is pretty wild in the way it works now, which actually, you know what? Just because I want to test this, I want to see if do they all have the same slasher. This also has static. I think they do. Which we're just testing something real fast here to see if these always will come with static on them. Static, static, static. Okay, indeed it is. It's one of the few questions I still had for myself. So the Ancestral Forge can now be used to upgrade our weapons or create our relic type weapons. But we have a couple different tiers here. So starting at level 20, and we can buy these doing the lesser rifts with Stygian shards. You can see, looking at the map, this is a level 57 rift. That's the low tier, and it has chances to drop a Stygian shard, jewels, or ancestral weapon. By doing that, we will get access to these blue ones. By putting this in here, we can see that we need a Merciless Iron Greatsword, Radium Ally, and Greater Blood Essence, and it will turn into a usable version, which will have that ability modification on it, Storm Infused, along with attributes which are random rolls. So just to show, that would end up getting turned into something like this, where it has the ability modification. Once you have this, though, you can then upgrade it even further to increase the item level of the weapon all the way up to 26. The final upgrade would require Sanguine, but the idea is instead of having just a Sanguine Greatsword that looks like this, you have this, which is the equivalent of a Sanguine, but with the random attributes on it, as well as an ability modification. Now, once you get up into the 80s, you'll start having these versions that drop instead, level 30, and then similar to before, if we were to put the Shattered Weapon in here, and we provide it with a Sanguine Greatsword and 4 Onyx Tears, we will get a usable version of the weapon. Now, the ability modifications on these are going to be completely random. They're like, since it's a Greatsword, it's always going to have 33.7 physical power and 25 physical damage to wood, but the rest of the perks are going to be completely RNG. However, there is a tier higher than this with the relic type weapons, which is what we see right here. If I was to, get an Apocalypse and put Apocalypse in there, same cost, 1 Sanguine Greatsword and Onyx Tier, but Apocalypse is always going to have a modification on Great Cleaver and a modification on Death from Above, and those attributes are static. So it will always have 15% attack speed, 10% weapon skill cooldown recovery rate, and 5% damage reduction, which is what I wanted to test here. So we can see the Relic Tier for these is always going to be static. The Relic Tier for this is always going to be Condemned. The Relic Tier for this is always going to be Chaos. And this would be like the highest tier of weapon. Now over here, these are only tier 1 rifts. There's also tier 2 rifts that will show up. In general, it takes about an hour for them to respawn, and they're active for about 20 minutes once they get up. But doing the tier 1 has a chance to drop these. Doing the tier 2 has a chance to drop this or this. On top of that, as you do the tier 1, you're going to get roughly 362 shards. That's what I got from running a tier 1. You get the same amount of the greater shards for doing a tier 2 rift, and we can also purchase these weapons, which have a chance at being the higher end version when we're purchasing the purples, which we'll go over there and take a look at that later. But the point being that there's a really nice kind of farm loop going on now as well. Some other stuff, looking at the necklaces, all the different necklaces now have a unique perk attached to them. So chance to gain Frozen Weapon, chance to gain Lesser Storm Shield, chance to gain Lesser Power Surge. On top of that, armor now has 4 different archetypes that it falls into. We have our Shadow Moon, which this is our physical archetype, so physical crit strike power, primary attack leech, as well as physical critical strike chance and movement speed. We have Scholar Gear, which is all about spells, so spell crit, spell power, spell cooldown, and spell leech. We have Dreadplate, which is like tank, so a little bit of physical power, but we also have damage reduction, weapon cooldown recovery rate, and increased healing and shields. And then we have kind of the all-rounder set, which this is going to be weapon attack speed and weapon life leech, along with physical and spell power, and an additional health boost as the set bonus. And this is going to be for multiple tiers of armor, so even going up to the Dracula gear, you can see right now I have the Dracula caster set on. So I get spell down recovery rate, spell leech, and then 15% spell crit chance for 4 seconds after I use a veil, along with just spell power and spell crit chance on every piece of gear. We also have a nice little attribute thing, so I can see I have a whopping 54% spell crit chance with this particular setup, but I really like how they broke this down. They spelled it out very clearly. Just a nice, very simple addition, but something I'm liking a lot. So yeah, big changes to gear and weapons in general that I'm a really big fan of. I'm trying to think if there's anything else at the base that I want to talk about. Well, we're going to be talking about moving a base, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, some really nice changes to the overall flow of the game. Some other things that are worth mentioning, we also don't get easily dismounted now when it comes to dismounts. You can take quite a few hits from the horse. My horse is right there, so actually we'll go, let me see, player teleport. There we go. It's going to use console commands to zip around. Which if you want to experiment with this stuff yourself, you can, if you're just playing on a private game, you can, all you do is admin auth, and then you can mess around with these different commands. If you're actually trying to play through the game, obviously I don't recommend doing this because you're just going to, you're skipping everything. For the purpose of trying to learn stuff, it's a great way to get going. So you can see taking a couple different shots here. Taking really big attacks or something that's going to stun can knock you off, but huge change there with the horse, because I mean it was so frustrating before when you're just trying to ride by on your horse and like a stray arrow catches you and dismounts you. So being able to take little pop shots here and there without getting dismounted, that is huge quality of life. Speaking of the devil, look, Belmont's over there. We're not going to fight any of the bosses. I'm going to let y'all discover the new boss fights on your own, but here's good old Belmont. So let's go over and take a look at the rift, and actually we'll do things a little bit faster there. Player teleport. Let me get off of this. So to talk about how the rifts work, when you show up, it'll say, the rift is active. Obviously, we have to have the eye to see that. And you can see this is kind of the central orb. We can see it's pointing in a direction. And so we got to go to that direction, and then there's some enemies that we got to kill. And after killing those enemies, we do a second wave, and then we're going to fight a boss. So we'll just head on over there, even though this is a low level one. Knock these out real quick. Actually, you know what? Just well, I don't know. It doesn't really take me that long to kill these things. I'll probably just do it. I was thinking about just using the console command to kill everything instantly, but show you, this will give you a better idea of the actual progression of accomplishing this. So after those 2 waves, oh, hang on, 1 guy left. It might actually be 3 waves. Find out in a second here. There we go. So 2 full waves done. This is going to pop, and then we have to find another one. Which, by the way, we also have another blood type now, Dracula. So movement speed during night, increased damage to enemies below 30%, increased healing from blood mend, additional bite charges. Really leading up to like the vampire vibes. You can see it's sending the thing down over here. Same thing. Charm effect. It's a really annoying new status that we have to deal with now. So there we go, we cleared this. And obviously we can just pick up these Stygian shards that drop on the ground. And now we would head over. Here is a Lesser Blood Soul, which is just going to be a boss that you had previously killed at some point in the game. The Lesser Blood Souls are obviously lower tier bosses, while the Primal Blood Souls are higher tier bosses. So really, really like that. The idea that we're doing this rift and it's going to be like an RNG fight with a boss that we'd fought definitely will keep things fresh versus just, you know, fighting some random elite. Feed on the lesser ones, the higher tier ones we do. Let's see, what did he drop for us? Discordant Knight. We got some tier 2 jewels. Don't really need any of those. So yeah, that's the basic idea of how rifts work. Now, these are obviously only tier 1 rifts. There's also tier 2 rifts as well. We're gonna make our way over to the merchant to show how that works. In general, from what I've been able to see, you get roughly 360 per full rift. Now, let me get these guys off of me. Go away. As I mentioned, there are merchants we can buy with. Now, the idea is this would be 2,000 greater shards. The other one would be, the other one is lesser shards. Oh, did my skeleton just hit you? Are you angry now? Okay, about to say, I was like, no, don't do this. Give Raider Stygian, we'll just do 10,000. Now, there's a chance to just get these completing the rift. Like it says, Stygian Shard, Jewel, or Ancestral Weapon. So the weapon could drop. But if the weapon does not drop after a couple rifts, you'll have earned enough of the... is it going? Am I getting them? There we go. You'll have earned enough that you could just end up buying what you want. And when you're buying one, it's going to be a RNG chance for it to be purple. So, or excuse me, orange. So going through quite a lot here. There we go. So not that bad, but you can see, there we go. Now we have the 1,000 Storms. As you can see, those are identical stats, and otherwise the rest are going to be different RNG factors. So definitely a bit of a grind to get the full relic, but I do like that, you know, there's a chance for this item to drop just doing the rift. And then on top of that, if you don't get the item while you're doing the rift, you can of course just you know, save up your shards to buy exactly what you want. And that is a grind that I am all about, you know, giving the player, oh, whoa, hang on, let me do this, teleport. Teleport to chunk waypoint. We'll just do that. Giving you something that you can actively work towards is super, super useful. I think that's one of the best things it could have done, you know, because doing the rift, you have a chance at it. And then on top of that, you're earning currency to just buy it. And then buying it also gives you a chance at getting the relic version as well, which is super nice. So we're going to hop over to here. Which real fast, the other one down here, there's another merchant. This one just gets you the lesser tier weapon, the one that I showed that would level up to 26. There's some other stuff I want to talk about real fast. There we go. Oh, I didn't talk about the fashion. So, is there anything on me? Are we out of combat? There we go. Yeah, we just have full fashion swatches now. So picking whatever drip you want on your armor. Super, super looking forward to that. I think that's just incredibly cool, being able to mix things up. So we are going to do this real fast. It's just going to clear this area out because we are going to pull in our castle. We're going to show the castle shifting feature. Beauty of console commands, just instantly destroying everything that's within the radius of my clicks. Including myself. But we should be good now. So, this is one of the biggest changes. We can now relocate a castle heart. So the idea is we would do this, relocate castle. And the idea about this is, let's say, you know, you started the game, your fort's here. I like that area. In the original, I made my fort down there, and then I was like, you know what, this isn't a good spot late game. So I want to move my base. I want to go up here, or I want to go up here, or whatever the case is. You can place down castle relocation. And you're going to connect a heart. I'm going to select that. And now it's going to pull up a list of everything that I used in my castle. So this is how many floors my castle currently has. That's how many, you know, this is a one-to-one of what my castle was previously. So the idea is you can pick a new area. You'll notice how it's giving me specifics here. It's not, I don't have the full build available, but it's pulling from the exact number of walls that I had in my castle, the exact number of floors. So you can go to a new area, you clear out enough of that area that you can then get things going. We'll do let's do one there and there. You'll notice over here as I'm doing it, it says mandatory structures, 1 of 16, place travel bags. So now we go to production, and I have to place everything that I had in my previous castle. Place that. Place that. Go into storage. It shows the different chests I had along with what was inside of them.
Cannot build here.
Just kind of slapping stuff down at this point. We can see mandatory structures have been placed, travel bags have been placed, complete the relocation. So now if I go over here, castle relocation, relocate castle, 99 of 99 structures have been placed. I hit confirm. Everything warps over. I mean, like, everything warps over. So if I go over here, you can see all the armor that I had that was in storage, that's still chilling. If I go through my chests, even items that you typically couldn't teleport are going to come along for the ride. So, you know, cannot be teleported. Well, they just teleported. But now, obviously, you know, it makes sense that you're teleporting this because you're shifting your entire base. But this is probably one of the things that I'm most excited for, just because of the simple fact that, you know, hey, boom, I was up there, now I'm over here. So if there's a spot you want to shift to, you can now do that, which is honestly just super, super, super cool. I absolutely love that so much. Now there is a cooldown on this. I think it's important to mention. You don't just get to teleport willy-nilly all over the place. If I went to castle,
my castle
try to create this, and I go to castle relocation, connect to castle heart. You can see 3 hours. So I'm not sure if it's always 3 hours, but there is enough of a cooldown that you're not going to be able to just do this constantly. The idea, though, is that you'll be able to move your base around as you progress through the game. That's something that personally I'm just really, really fond of. So the last thing before we wrap up, I didn't talk about them yet, but the mace and the bow. So the mace is really nice. We got a little bit of AoE on that. And actually, you know what? Just to better showcase this, we're going to teleport on over to a rift area, and we will fight those dudes over there. Perfect. Not perfect. No, wait, we're good. So the mace has a little bit of AoE. It also has a sweet spot. You can kind of see that right there. So you can see what there, 60, 60, 65, additional 20% damage at the radius of the whip. Besides that, we also have the rush in here, leap around and knock enemies back while applying a fading snare. And then over this one, we have entangling whip, which is going to be a straight line snare. So you throw that down, and until they get hit with something, they're locked into place, which is super, super good. So I definitely like the whip. You know, having it's a nice mid-range weapon. So I feel like weapons very much fall either, you know, you're right on top of the target or you're far away. The whip, it's the middle ground, which is awesome. Looking at the longbow, just to compare it, crossbow shot 69, quick longbow shot 42, but I can also charge this to hit up at 83. So the longbow is going to do more damage the more you charge. On top of that, as you hit enemies, you're going to grant focus. Focus stacks up to 3 times, and it's going to increase the effectiveness of other skills. So with this one, it's going to do additional arrow and deal bonus damage. With this, it's going to increase the number of times the arrow turns around. Just to talk about those abilities, so as I build up my focus, you can see that ring now there's a little dot. If I were to hit this guy with that arrow, of course he teleported right when I did it. Let me charge this back up. As far as I can tell, the multi-shot is very much a multi-shot. You can't just, you know, hit an enemy with all the arrows of the multi-shot. You can see some nice single target damage coming out of that skill there. Another perk of this thing is if you fully charge it, it's going to pierce and hit enemies that are behind for a little bit of extra damage. So if I were to go this way, so you're doing about half the damage on that pierce. And where's the rift? I want to get some AoE to show off multi-shot. But yeah, really like the longbow. I see this becoming like a go-to weapon in my repertoire. It doesn't have the raw damage that, you know, like Fan the Hammer would. Fan the Hammer is still obviously just amazing for just pumping out damage, but the fan does seem a little more chaotic. You can't just pump damage with it like you used to. But the bow definitely seems like it's going to be a very solid choice the more I play with it. And look at that AoE, man. If you're fighting multiple targets, that is an awesome skill. Like, that's devastating. That's, I love it. I love it. So anyway, that is probably the majority of things I want to cover. Obviously, there's a bunch of other small changes as well. You know, we have way more stuff on our weapon wheel, but the biggest things I think we've covered so far, you know, being able to upgrade our weapons now, the different armor, the new weapons, the way skills work. Honestly, I hope y'all are as excited as I am, because this is just going to be an absolutely phenomenal experience. I can't wait. by the time this video is up, I'll probably already have my own server live. We're going to be hosting a private server that's going to be PvP, people going hard. Should be a good time. You can see the level 2 rifts. Those are active for 20 minutes, and then it's basically an hour until they're back up. But yeah, I think the rifts are gonna really propel people towards playing more as well. So personally, I can't wait. Either way, thanks for coming on by, checking things out. Yeah, hopefully I see you in game later.